We can now bring in Pierre Purseigle, a researcher in modern European history at the University of Warwick. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us on the program today. What is the French Prime Minister really trying to do with these consultations?
The Prime Minister is trying to resolve an impossible political equation. There's no parliamentary majority supporting his government or supporting the type of reforms that he has in mind. And he's trying to force a decision in spite of this impossible parliamentary equation. The great difficulty for him is that he's proved unable to even conduct the very negotiations that could have opened potential resolution to this crisis. So he's looking towards a failed gamble.
But is he essentially trying to make his exit more dignified, the fact that he announced this confidence vote?
This is one of the key interpretations, and I think that's probably part of the story. He is a man who's desperate to find a dignified exit. He's proved unable to articulate a coherent program of reforms, and this was most obvious in the last few weeks, where you would have expected him to engage in negotiations with opposition parties, and instead he pretended that nobody was around to have a chat with him. So the current discussions that are going on this morning are very likely to fail because they were never really open in good faith.
Could Bayrou also be looking to the presidential election in 2027?
Well, François Bayrou is I'm tempted to say, a sort of perennial presidential candidate. He's the man who's been involved in French politics at the highest level for almost 40 years now. He's ran previously, and like many senior French politicians, convinced that he can succeed where everybody else has failed. It is, however, exceedingly difficult to see what sort of coalition he could muster to support his candidacy. So I think it's probably more reasonable to consider that he's simply looking for a dignified exit more than anything else.
Given that we're staring this political crisis in the face here in France, let's just, for argument's sake, imagine the government does fall on Monday. What happens if the president goes ahead and nominates someone else? They're still going to have this problem with France's deficit. So won't we have a repeat scenario down the line as well?
Okay, so here at this point, it's interesting to take a look at the parliamentary calendar. If President Macron nominates a new government and a new prime minister, the first task for the government would be to negotiate the 2026 budget, something that the previous government was unable to do. That process is expected to start in October and would conclude by December. The failure of a potentially new government to get a budget approved may very well lead them to once again call for a vote of confidence in the government, and we may very well be back in the same situation in January or perhaps even earlier. So it is very difficult to see how France can avoid calling for new parliamentary elections. For what is worth, in my mind, I think it's more a question of when than if, because there's simply no solution.
Because this is something that the far-right National Rally is calling for. What happens if there is a snap election and then the far-right comes out on top? How long can Emmanuel Macron keep them out of being active members of the government?
Well, the French constitutional system has already experienced these kinds of situation, what we call cohabitation, between a president of the republic and the prime minister and the government from another political party. So it is very possible for Macron to stay in position. He's under no obligation to resign, and he might actually use this as an opportunity to demonstrate the Marine Le Pen's and Jordan Bardella's incapacity to govern.
But Pierre, if I could just jump in there, we saw what happened last year with the outcome when Emmanuel Macron shocked the country and dissolved parliament. And then we were expecting this cohabitation, but it never happened because Emmanuel Macron doesn't like to compromise, essentially.
Absolutely. And he's got two choices here. He could either call upon a coalition of center-left party to take over the government, something which he refused to do because it would mark the failure of his political project. Or he could call the far right and the national rally. So he's facing an impossible parliamentary equation, and this is perhaps why it feels like dissolving parliament might be the only way forward. But even that, of course, does not guarantee that the problem we face right now will be solved, that a new balance of forces might actually emerge. I mean, the polls are not terribly enlightening in this regard.
And where does this leave Emmanuel Macron? Because he's been a lame duck for pretty much the past year. He's likely to remain a lame duck, whatever happens. And where does it leave things like potentially putting French boots on the ground in Ukraine as part of any future security guarantee for Kyiv? Won't that need parliamentary approval?
So the French president enjoys a tremendous amount of power that is quite often extraordinary with regard to his international counterparts. He's got the possibility to continue leading French diplomacy, to get involved in military operations in very limited circumstances. But you're absolutely right. Whatever happens at the domestic level, the significant challenges that the country faces internationally remain, and it will be very difficult for France to play the role that he wants to play if it cannot actually get a functioning government in place.
Pierre, very briefly, we are expecting a strike, a national strike next Wednesday. Is that expected to be the case and remain on the cards, even if the government falls?
So the movement that you're referring to is called a national blockade. It's very difficult to make sense of that. This is not exactly a call for general strike. This has not been endorsed formally by trade unions. This is a movement that was launched by far-right activists, which now seems to be led by radical left-wing activists. This is mainly happening on social media. It's very difficult at this stage, frankly, to establish whether this is going to lead to a significant social movement. A lot of people made the comparison with the Yellow Jackets movements, but this seems to be a very different beast indeed. So we'll have to see what exactly happens on the 10th of September.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Pierre Purseigle, thank you for joining us on the program today.